All right, we can get started. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining from around the world. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join this webinar, to tune into this webinar. And yeah, we really appreciate it. I am Danny. I'll be moderating this webinar. And a little bit about me is I am a product marketing manager at BrowserStack, and I currently oversee the entire accessibility testing suite and the visual testing suite. And today I have two wonderful speakers with me, Eva Hazy from FanDuel and Shambhavi Sheel from BrowserStack. And it's an honor for me to share this panel with these two people. All right, Eva, would you like to introduce yourself, and Shambhavi can follow up after that?
Yeah, thank you, Danny. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, BrowserStack, for having me. I am a senior quality engineer at FanDuel and a certified professional in accessibility core competencies, certified by the International Association of Accessibility Professionals. I also participate in the Accessibility Champions group internally at my organization.
Okay.
Thank you, Danny, and thank you, Eva. So hey everyone, thanks for joining in. So I'm a product manager at BrowserStack, and I've been with BrowserStack for close to 2 years now, and I've been involved in building our dedicated product for accessibility testing that helps organizations ensure that digital platforms are usable by everybody, regardless of their abilities, and that they meet all the accessibility standards.
Thank you so much, guys. Like I said before, it's a true privilege to share this stage with you. I'm so excited for this. I hope everyone's excited as well. Before we dive into our agenda, a couple of housekeeping items. Today's session will run for 60 minutes, 45 minutes. We'll be discussing the agenda, and the last 15 minutes we'll leave it for Q&A. And also, please note that there's a Q&A feature on Zoom. It's already open, so if you have any questions right now or even during our discussion, feel free to leave your questions. We have a dedicated team who are ready to give you answers, and also we'll be picking up answers ourselves, questions ourselves at the end of the session. And yeah, I already saw one question from Ashwini. Yes, the recording will be made available to everyone after the session. It's being recorded. And yeah, let's get started. Okay, here's a high-level overview of the agenda, what we'll be talking about and what we'll be doing at this event today. So first and foremost, we will be talking about accessibility, why it matters. That's why we have an expert panel here, followed by what are the common challenges. We'll try to understand the challenges that users and companies face, followed by what's like the best proven strategies and methods to achieve these objectives. And we'll also have a product demo of BrowserStack Accessibility Suite. And we will be having a Q&A session at the end. All right, let's get started. To kick things off, I'll hand it over to Eva to expand on why accessibility is crucial, and also to enlighten us on what accessibility is really about. Eva, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So here we have digital accessibility. It's about ensuring that every user is able to access, perceive, and operate digital content. But I wanted to start out by kind of expanding on what we mean when we say digital accessibility. The World Wide Web Consortium, the W3C, defines digital accessibility simply. It is websites, apps, tools, and technologies that are designed and developed so that people with disabilities can use them, so that in an ideal world, all people can obtain the same information with an emphasis on autonomy for each user. It's also essential to DEI. In the United States, people with disabilities make up the largest minority population. So it is important both ethically and as a business practice to take end users into consideration, which means you are championing equal access and opportunity, you are encouraging diversity of perspective, and you are creating a digital inclusion space. If digital accessibility is making sure we provide adequate tools, digital inclusion is making sure the environment we give them is welcoming and safe and equitable.
Awesome. All right, and we have some compelling statistics on the screen as well. Eva, would you like us to walk through?
Yes. So I wanted to take a look at a few statistics to really get an idea of the number of potential users we're talking about. Right now, an estimated 1.3 billion people, or 16% of the world's population, are living with some form of disability. 1 in 6 adults worldwide and closer to 1 in 4 in the United States are living with some form of disability, an accessibility barrier. I'm not going to linger on this, but I do want to point out there is certainly nuance to the reporting that leads to statistics that we talk about in presentations, because global efforts to collect and standardize data have been inconsistent, due in part to challenges from retrieving census data from disabled citizens, differing opinions on disability, and ultimately discrimination that has historically made disabled people less of a priority in policymaking. I mentioned here that 80% of disabilities that users experience are invisible to others. For example, cognitive impairments or speech impairments. And I also wanted to add here that any of us can join this group at any time, because even if you're someone who doesn't currently experience an accessibility barrier, the reality is that age has significant impact. The older we get, the more likely we are to become disabled. Right now, 8% of Americans 35 or younger report having a disability, but it climbs significantly. And by age 75, the likelihood here is 46%, which is almost half the demographic. This is often also a mixture of barriers, including mobility, cognitive, and vision, all at the same time. So imagine this group experiencing these barriers for the first time in their lives without being able to get acclimated to assistive technology throughout. But I do want to point out here that the aging population constitutes an ever-growing user base. And the AARP noted in 2023 that actually 48% of seniors are using social media platforms via mobile apps. So they're definitely leveraging smartphones much more now than they used to.
Oh, that's really insightful, Eva. Help me understand what's the driving force behind the recent increase in emphasis on accessibility compliance, and how has this change come about?
Absolutely. So on the next slide here, I wanted to bring about a couple of considerations that are definitely worth mentioning. The impact of the global pandemic can not be overstated. I just mentioned how seniors are increasingly using technology to interact, as have most of us in the past 5 years. And this period has shifted the way the public views digital accessibility due to our reliance on digital devices. And as such, it has also rocketed forward compliance expectations. Since we are using devices from everything from education to work to engaging with our communities, entertainment, and purchasing, not only will creating accessible products and services lead to more people accessing it who are currently not able to, but it creates better usability for all of us as current users as well. And I wanted to point out also that there are accessibility barriers that can prevent people from fully participating in their communities. There's a lot here that could be mentioned, but I just wanted to mention a few. These are taking part in a voting process, managing one's money, and privacy and security risks. When people are forced to rely on the help of others to complete tasks that they would be able to complete for themselves if a product or service was built with access in mind, we are now adding risk of financial exploitation that could be avoided. So an example here is someone with a motor impairment who prefers to bank from home online and manage their money using maybe a banking app or a website, but the banking platform isn't compatible with their assistive technology. So this person is now forced to either trust a family member or a friend, or create a power of attorney for someone to visit the bank physically on their behalf. One other example here would be on a purchase screen in an e-commerce situation. If form labels are really far away from input fields, a person with low vision might then get confused, because once they magnify the app to the needed degree for their disability, they might accidentally double enter credit card information. And so that information is now put in a vulnerable place for audiences that it wasn't intended for. For example, delivery instructions, something like that. And I wanted to give a brief overview of the WCAG as guidelines, which is what we all follow when creating digital content. This stands for the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. We call it WCAG. And it was created by the World Wide Web Consortium's Web Accessibility Initiative. And this was to make web content more accessible for all users. And this is the gold standard and is definitely what is looked at when we are assessing legal compliance. The 4 main guiding principles here are known by POUR. It's the acronym. It stands for perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. So let's break those down just a little bit. Perceivable is going to mean the user must be able to access the information being presented. An example would be providing text alternatives to media content. Operable would mean users have to be able to navigate or interact with their content. So making sure content is keyboard accessible would be important in this case. Understandable means the user can understand the information and take the actions you want them to. So imagine the preferred user journey that you want them to take. So here you would want to use clear and concise language. And robust means really as technology evolves and advances, that content is as future-proofed as possible, giving it the best chance to operate on a variety of devices that maybe we don't even use yet. So here we would want to continue maximizing current content with assistive technology. And I also mention assistive technology here and can briefly go through that. There are a few different types of assistive technology utilized by people with disabilities. One is visual. This can include things like screen readers or closed captioning. One is auditory assistive tech, which is voice assistance or voice recognition software. We have motor assistive tech, which could include eye trackers or mobility aids, think like walkers or wheelchairs, and cognitive, which will be assistive devices that help with memory and attention and thinking skills. I also include on this page that the web content accessibility guidelines have definitely expanded in scope to include mobile applications, which now include hybrid and native apps. But while we definitely have a lot of very well-written guidelines and documentations for web, including remediation techniques, the latest published version of how the W3C applies these guidelines to mobile accessibility is actually 2015, only up to 2.0. And so success criteria after that was basically addressed by adding pieces into version 2.1 and version 2.2. But as standards change, I wanted to call out here that we are constantly interpreting and learning more about how to become compliant in specifically the mobile accessibility space. And it is now considered, mobile accessibility is now considered kind of a blanket term for all things web and mobile. So this includes screens on smartwatches, screens on car dashboards, tablets, and phones. And
All right,
this leads me.
We can also look at some of the business implications. I was just going to get to that. Back to you, Eva.
Absolutely. Thank you, Danny. Yeah, I wanted to go over a business case because I feel like there might be people in this meeting who already have an accessibility working group internally. There might be people who already have a plan in progress at their company, but there will be people who are just starting their journey or want to know where to begin. And so a business case is a great place to do that. Organizations definitely don't go out of their way to avoid digital accessibility and inclusion, but it can be really challenging to prioritize it amongst other ever-evolving technology and output. So as practitioners, we want to shine a light on this business case for accessibility. One is people with disabilities represent a large consumer market. They represent the third largest market segment in the United States and globally estimated to represent over $1 trillion of spending power as reported in 2022. Two here is lower operational costs. If your business has problems with accessibility, you are pushing more calls, more traffic to customer service centers. Even if consumers have abandoned the transaction, they often will call those. And there's also just the built-in cost of audits performed if accessibility does not get built in from the beginning. An important call out is definitely risk management. And this ties into number 2 as well, but it is really important for companies to remember that accessibility needs to be built into the process of creating products. It is not a single stop. And as new features are created, us as stakeholders really need to treat accessibility with the same priority as other functional requirements, such as security. According to UsableNet's 2023 year-end digital accessibility lawsuit report, accessibility lawsuits are on the rise, and this could be its own presentation, but I will state here that I am not a legal expert, cannot comment on specific cases, but because there's room for interpretation in current law, and it varies regionally, these lawsuits are helping create legal clarity with our current legislation. And as the internet becomes a resource that we all increasingly rely on, the more scrutiny businesses will receive that are not prioritizing digital accessibility. And lastly here, making products accessible boosts brand value and reputation. Users with disabilities are major vocal advocates for companies that make efforts in this area. And many companies include core values with words like customer focused or helpful or simple. And creating accessible and inclusive content helps to drive the connection between those principles and their audience. And I wanted to go over a couple of impactful laws here. There are a lot of laws and policies that are really specific to a variety of levels of locale. And I really encourage everyone to look at specific ones where they live. I've included a resource link here to the list of the W3C's site. This stays updated at an international level. And I also wanted to note that in many accessibility laws, it is at first a government's affirmation that organizations will need to become accessible, but specific rules on how to do so may come later. So I wanted to list a few that have set precedent here. 1990, Americans with Disabilities Act was enacted, the ADA, which was modeled after the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And this gave civil rights protections to people with disabilities the same way we gave those protections to people based on race, sex, national origin, and religion. Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act was the first federal law to address civil rights for the United States for people with disabilities, and it required agencies to provide disabled individuals with equal access to electronic information and data the same way it does for those who do not have disabilities. India's Right of Persons with Disabilities Act in 95 made progress, particularly in the service and employment sectors. This act reserves 3% of all government jobs for people with disabilities. And the upcoming European Accessibility Act, this is going to be enforced in 2025. This is a directive from the European Union that will require member states to implement laws that ensure certain products and services are accessible to people with disabilities and the elderly. This is going to apply to a wide range of systems, including personal devices, public services, and e-commerce sites.
Thank you so much, Eva. Yeah, that was enlightening, and thank you so much for setting a strong context for what we'll be discussing next. Okay, before we jump into challenges, we would like to understand what are some of the biggest challenges that you're currently facing in your companies. And for that, we'll be raising a poll. If you don't see a poll pop up on your screen, you might want to check for tabs. And yeah, take some time, go through the options, and please respond to the option most relevant to you. Okay, we'll wait 10 seconds more, and then we'll proceed to the next segment. Okay, I think we have a fairly number of responses now. All right, moving on to the challenges. Eva, based on your experience and expertise in accessibility testing space, what are the most common accessibility challenges that you've observed users encounter in this space?
So this is a great question. There's a lot of content here. I wanted to, I think a good way to think about user challenges is to break it down into 3 categories, because we need to consider aspects like age or potential health conditions. Some of these things actually cause users' need to be different from one day to the next. So permanent would be accessibility considerations which do not go away. Think permanent blindness or hearing loss. Temporary are accessibility considerations that last for a finite or a limited period of time, for example, a broken arm. And situational, these are situation specific. This could include things like screen glare or a noisy room. To the right, we have our 5 accessibility barriers though. So these can fall into these 3 categories at different times for people. The first being cognitive impairments. This may affect any part of the nervous system. This can also impact how people hear, move, see, speak, understand. This includes neurological disorders. This includes neurodiversity, behavioral disorders. But it is important to note that these don't necessarily affect the intelligence of the user. An example of a barrier for a person who has this disability would be layouts that are difficult to understand and use. Visual impairments, second one, could include mild to full vision loss or lack of or increased color sensitivity. So blindness would apply here, or color blindness. This is a reason why including audio descriptions and being mindful of color contrast is really important. Auditory impairments, our hearing barriers, include mild to moderate to total hearing loss as well. And an example of a digital barrier here would be media content that does not include captioning or transcripts. Motor or physical impairments here could include muscle control limitations, joint disorders, missing limbs. And an example of a barrier would be not providing keyboard support help as a form of assistive tech. And speech impairments are when a user has difficulty producing speech that's recognizable by others or by voice recognition software. So this could include muteness, this could include stuttering, and a barrier often in sites or apps for people with speech impairments is when a company only offers a phone number as a way to communicate with them.
Thanks, Eva. Yeah, and the next question is for Shambhavi. Shambhavi, could you please talk about how the testing space for accessibility has evolved, and where do we stand in terms of maturity and adoption curve as an industry?
Sure, Danny. So I guess let's talk about the testing space in general. So we've observed that there has been a lot of investments and improvements in the functional testing space over the last 10 to 20 years. And we've also seen similar improvements along the lines of, say, performance testing or security testing. So as more and more people come online, we kind of need to ensure that security aspect is thoroughly administered. And when organizations test at scale, we need to monitor performance and ensure the end-to-end functional testing is present. However, we have not seen a comparable investment and an active engagement for accessibility testing, like at par with the other testing methodologies. It has gained some momentum in the last few years, but it is still far behind when compared to the other testing methods. So accessibility testing in essence is a moral imperative, right? Everyone should be able to meaningfully access all the information available on a digital property. And as mentioned very clearly by Eva and explained by her as well, we are seeing an increase in the number of regulations coming up in this space. There are stricter compliance laws that mandate your digital assets to be accessible to everyone. So that's one of the biggest reasons why we are seeing more and more organizations getting involved. But in case of accessibility testing, where it also differs from the other testing methodologies, is that there is a learning curve when it comes to being able to do accessibility testing correctly. And it is a relatively newer space when you take a look at the broader market. Hence, maturity levels for accessibility testing are not so high comparatively, considering a majority of the organizations are getting started. And as a result, one of the biggest challenges organizations are facing while performing accessibility testing right now is relying on the various tools available in the market to help them with it. But what we've observed is that a majority of these status quo tools don't really do justice to let everyone achieve their accessibility goals. And this again is related to and kind of ties back to the lack of expertise that we'd mentioned earlier.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just 2 cents from my end. We are currently living in a very interesting time, right? Like you said, accessibility is a moral imperative, but on the testing side, we still have a long way to go. And I think that's where we'll be focusing on in our next segment. And yeah, before we delve into the strategies and the methodologies, we have another poll for the audience. We just want to understand, how are you currently testing for accessibility? What kind of tools and solutions that you use. So you will see a poll coming up on your screen. And yeah, I don't see poll yet. It's possible that there are some technical difficulties. Okay, so what we can do is we can come back to the poll. Let's discuss strategies and methodologies right now. I think this is like the most interesting part of this webinar, especially for me, because we've been talking about the context, the challenges, and what and how, right? How do we solve about it? So yeah, the next question is for Eva. What strategies should companies implement to address accessibility issues across their entire organization? Please enlighten us again.
So I wanted to let Shambhavi focus on the testing side of this. I think testing is really important. I'm a quality engineer. But here are some of the effective ways to achieve accessibility compliance in your organization. One is stakeholder buy-in, maybe the most important part. Here, I encourage people to engage early, understand the needs and the motivations of different types of stakeholders, and customize pitching to each one of them, coming prepared to address questions you imagine that they would ask. Somebody from product might ask a different question than somebody who is a designer versus somebody who is in executive. So find stories to make it real, make it tangible. And this would be the time to pitch that business case that you've created using data, and ultimately recognize that it can be a really overwhelming concept. So finding ways to incorporate remediation or accessibility training with approachable benchmarks that don't completely disrupt current priorities for the organization. Also here is focusing on inclusive design. This is a process-based methodology and is intended to create experiences that are usable by as many people as possible. It is not the same as accessible design. Accessible design is focused on conforming to current law, which is important, but inclusive design would be a great approach because it proactively identifies situations where users might be excluded from using particular technologies before it even hits the market. And feedback and usability testing, which would involve feedback from disabled people, can be extremely valuable. This will find gaps. This will help employees gain insights into creating best practices and definitely overall end user satisfaction. Investing in training for an organization would not only span having an understanding of user challenges, kind of what we're talking about today, but also training on assistive technology. Ideally, there's also specific training for each stakeholder, whether it be design, product development, and testing. As a quality engineer, I want training on testing, but a designer will want education on inclusive design practices, and a native application engineer will need a deep dive into accessibility documentation on iOS or Android, for example. Building a culture of accessibility is also extremely important. What a lot of companies do is they create an accessibility champions group internally, like the one that I'm in. And these groups often act as advocates, liaisons, internal audit support for the organization, and celebrating wins and recognitions for these projects, as well as supporting accessibility in recruiting efforts, all help create a positive culture that invites further stakeholder interests. All of these things help feed each other. Finding tools that fit your needs as a company is also extremely important. You really want to build a toolkit made up of tools that are user-friendly, reliable, secure, and compatible with the devices and the preferences of the stakeholders that are going to be using them, whether that is a plugin or it is getting a license for a platform for testing. Investing in tools is 100% necessary. And accessibility maturity models, in this context, they are a framework for establishing an accessibility program. And the intended audience here is going to be management and it's going to be leadership. So this could either be created internally if an organization has an accessibility program, or company might bring an accessibility consultant, a specialist, to help create this with them. So this model will always include three things. It will assess the current effectiveness of an organization. It will identify gaps between current capabilities of products and the next level of accessibility. And it will support a plan for the next steps in improving the accessibility performance over time at the organization.
Thanks, Eva. Before I ask the next question to Shambhavi, I think the poll is ready. Team, if we could launch the poll. Yes, okay, I can see it on my screen now. I hope everyone can see it on theirs as well. Okay, all right, let's give 15 to 20 seconds for the participants to respond on the poll. Okay, we're getting high engagement. All right. All right, great. Let's move on to the next question. Shambhavi, the next one is for you. Given your experience in building accessibility products at BrowserStack, and I'm sure you must have done extensive research on accessibility testing and the user pain points. Can you please highlight the key challenges that companies face, when their objective is to ensure accessibility compliance?
Sure. Thanks for that question, Danny. So what we have observed after our research and also while speaking with a lot of customers is that some of the challenges that we've observed when it comes to accessibility testing is that number one, like I mentioned previously as well, the status quo tools in the market are not very effective and rather time consuming. So essentially, they are not able to keep up with the dynamic structure that modern web apps typically tend to have and are not very effective in the breadth as well as the depth of testing when we have to test a lot of pages and native mobile apps as well. The next thing that we've kind of realized is that the tools market is highly fragmented. Organizations have to use, a wide variety of tools to test for different aspects of accessibility, like static analyzers and then a screen reader, to do the end-to-end testing for accessibility and to ensure that their website is accessible today as well as over time as well, right? Now, the other issue that this brings up is that organizations essentially have to, evaluate, then procure, and then maintain a variety of tools, each of which would likely come with their own onboarding curves and their own learning curves. This juggling between multiple tools can be a tedious process, especially since we would like to, collate and consolidate results obtained from multiple sources in one place and also in a unified format. Besides, testing for accessibility can be a rather complex task that requires significant expertise in understanding the WCAG guidelines as well as web development. So this expertise becomes particularly crucial when identifying advanced accessibility issues. And since this is still a relatively new area, there is a shortage of maybe the quality talent or maybe the expertise available with the necessary skills and experience, right? Now, the other aspect also is that manually testing for accessibility issues can be comparatively challenging and time consuming. But writing explicit test cases for accessibility can again become a hassle given the limited expertise in this space. Automating accessibility testing can, play a pivotal role. And although there is some automation that has been incorporated into accessibility testing, we still have a lot of room for improvement over there. And I guess also organizations struggle when it comes to testing across different device, browser, and OS combinations to ensure their website or native mobile app is accessible across all the platforms. This offering is not very readily available in the market, and it makes the end-to-end testing for accessibility even more difficult. So, once we realized once we realized all of these challenges that the organizations are currently facing within the accessibility testing space, we kind of ideated our product suite for accessibility testing. So ideally, what we are looking to do with our product is to help address all of these pain points by providing you with avenues to test and monitor the accessibility health of your websites, and also test your native mobile applications to make them accessible and usable to everybody. So the testing evaluates the navigability, the readability, and then also the compatibility of the websites or the native mobile apps with assistive technologies, as well to ensure compliance with all the all the accessibility standards and also to maintain inclusivity. So BrowserStack accessibility testing suite introduces like a one-stop solution to identify basic and complex accessibility issues in the rendered front end of your website or native mobile app, and also helps you to monitor the accessibility health of your website to be confident about accessibility compliance, and also to be just audit ready at all times to avoid any lawsuits that come in your way. You can also schedule monitoring scans to assess the accessibility health of your website over time. You can also integrate automated tests into your existing functional test suite using our SDK. You can get instant access to screen readers on real desktop and mobile devices, along with faster workflow scans on web pages and also on native mobile apps.
All right, I like that word, audit ready. I'm sure everyone must be curious to see, our product in action. So why don't we head into the demo? Over to you, Shambhavi.
I hope my screen is visible to everybody.
Yes.
Sure. Cool. So let us start with a quick demo of our accessibility testing suite. So as you can see over here, our product is structured to help you scan and monitor. Okay, so sorry, just get me go back. Yeah. So as you can see, our product is structured to, help you scan and monitor your website, also perform basic and advanced manual testing, as well as automate accessibility testing. So we would go through each section one by one, and then later on, we'll also explore how we can test for accessibility on native mobile apps. So let us start with a website scanner, using which you can get a sense of your website's accessibility, identify areas that need your attention, and also set up recurring scans to monitor WCAG compliance. So let us quickly create a website scan from here. So I give it a name. I can also select the WCAG version. So we do support WCAG 2.0 A to AAA, 2.1 A to AAA. We also support WCAG 2.2 A to AAA, which is the most recently released WCAG version out there in the market. So you can choose whichever version you want to conform with and then move ahead with your testing. For the purpose of the demo, I'll go ahead and choose WCAG 2.1 AA, which is the most widely used WCAG version currently in the market. You can choose the recurrent schedule for your scan, either weekly or daily. The other things that you can do within the website scan is you can also test pages that are hosted on lower or staging environments by adding a local testing setup. You can also test pages that are behind authentication by adding a login configuration. And then there are a bunch of additional settings as well that you can just check and select as per what is required. So I'll go ahead and add a page that I would like to scan, and I'll just create the scan. So while the scan is getting created and initialized, what I would also show to you is how a report looks like. So this is the overview of a previously created website scan, which has like 4 runs already. So here you can see the issue history, the scan stability, and all of the pages that were added, along with details on all the scan runs that have happened over time. So I'll just go ahead and open one scan run report. So this is the summary of the scan run report that I have opened. Here, all the issues that have been identified are grouped with respect to the severity that they relate to, along with the components, the categories, and all the pages that are affected in that particular scan run. All of these are interactive charts, and you can just click on maybe a severity to filter out issues belonging to that particular severity level itself. And then you can see a list of all the issues that belong to that particular filter that you have applied. You can go ahead and take a look at each of these issues. So the issues are identified basis the rule that they relate to. Essentially, how we categorize a rule is that we categorize them into buckets. For example, all the color contrast issues would be bucketed under the color contrast rule that we've created, and all the issues that have been reported under that would essentially be grouped over here. So you can view each issue, and you can view the details of each issue as well on the right hand side. You can view the element details. You can also view a section on how to fix those issues. For example, it tells you that the foreground color identified was this one, background color was this one, which gives you a color contrast of 2.4.2, whereas the expected one was 4.5.1. So all the details are readily available along with the page where this issue was encountered. You do get an option to share the link to this issue, as well as share this entire scan run report as well with your colleagues. And this is a publicly shareable link, so you can share it with anybody with whom you wish to share this with. We also have a section on scan logs. So essentially what it helps you identify is if a page was not scanned correctly, it will give you details on what failed. If there were some redirects, it also gives you detail on that. And then if the page was successfully scanned, it also gives you details on that. The other thing that I would like to highlight on the All Issues tab would be that issues are grouped by their type, and they can also be grouped by the WCAG guidelines that they are violating. So essentially what it means is we have a list of the success criteria and all the issues are that are reported within that success criteria. So I did see a question in the chat where we have asked how can we create a VPAT report. So essentially, when you have all the issues grouped within a success criteria, it also helps you in creating a VPAT report. So yeah, that was a website scanner report. Let us move on to automated tests. Sorry, give me a moment. So yeah, automated tests offer more of a plug and play model wherein you just need to enable a simple code flag within your SDK config file, and you can integrate accessibility testing into your existing functional test suite. And after you have completed the integration and you have run your build, you would be able to see your reports on the dashboard. So let me open a sample report, a sample build that I had created previously. So as you can see, the structure of this report also is structurally similar to what we had for the website scanner. There are a few details, additional details on the test case level as well. You can go to the All Issues tab and view the issues for that particular build, and you can go to the test to view the issue summary for each test case along with the severity breakdown. So now after this, we can explore how can you perform basic and advanced manual testing using our plugin. So for the purpose of the demo, I have a website, bstackdemo.com, and I'll just go ahead and launch our accessibility plugin, which is essentially a browser extension that you can install on your browser, on Chrome browser, to test for accessibility. So here we can see that we do support basic and advanced types of testing. So our workflow analyzer, essentially what it does, it keeps scanning your DOM for issues as you navigate across web pages, and it identifies and reports static issues on the rendered front end of your web page. Assisted tests are more advanced way of testing in the sense that the scanner would identify potential issues, but it would need your inputs to confirm on the same. And then using the screen readers, you can actually step in your customer's shoes and test your digital property using screen readers on real devices. So let us start exploring them. I'll just start the workflow analyzer. Here as well, you have the flexibility to choose the WCAG version against which you want to run your test. And you can again choose WCAG 2.0, A to AAA, 2.1, A to AAA, and 2.2, A to AAA as well. So I'll start a full page scan over here. So you can see that our scanner has detected 55 issues on this page, right? So at this point, I'll not stop the scan, but I'll just add maybe this into cart, and I'll press on checkout. So you can see from 55, the issue count has risen up to 60 on 60 issues in 2 pages and 8 components. So essentially what a scanner has done is it collates the list of issues that are found with the DOM change, and it processed those issues in the background. It collated, consolidated, and also kind of deduplicated common issues. And then it will report you only the unique issues. So at this point, maybe I'll go ahead and stop the scan, and I'll just show you how this issue detail looks like. So over here as well, as you can see, this issue detail looks similar to the view that we had on the dashboard reports. There are a few added capabilities that we have on the extension, like highlight. So maybe I'll just go ahead and highlight this one. So as you can see, this is the particular element that was affected. Again, you have all the element details on how to fix the issue. You can inspect this particular element to find its exact occurrence on the code. You can go ahead and view more info about this element. You can do a ton of other functionalities on that element and identify this element, the problematic element on in your code base, you can go ahead and save the report. So I'll just do that. After the report is saved, you will get an option to share link to this particular report. So I'll just grab the link and I'll open the report, which essentially again opens up the dashboard and it opens up that particular report for me, right? So again, the structure of this report is similar to the other reports that we have observed. All of these are again interactive charts, and you can just check all the issues that have occurred on that particular user workflow that you were testing. So now let me move on and see how we can perform screen reader testing on real devices. So we do have options to test for VoiceOver on Mac, NVIDIA on Windows, TalkBack on Android. So let me just go ahead and start a screen reader session from here. Great. So now what I'm going to do is I'll start the screen reader from here and I'll navigate on this web page using my keyboard, and we can see how the screen reader actually reads out the contents on the web page. So I'm starting the screen reader now.
VoiceOver utility. VoiceOver, Safari, https://www.google.com, insert share button. You are currently new tab button group. Tab overview button. You are currently on a button inside leaving toolbar. Entering Google Web Content. Link, Gmail, link, search for images. You are currently on a link Google Apps, collapsed button. You are currently on a button. To click this button, press Control Option space. VoiceOver off.
So like you can see, you can perform your end-to-end user testing using the screen reader on real devices. So all of these devices are real devices, and you can test for using the screen reader on all of them. So I'll go ahead and stop the session for now. And I would like to call out that screen reader testing is also available for native mobile apps. So for that, you need to head over to App Accessibility and start a screen reader session on Android or iOS. So now when it comes to native mobile apps, along with a screen reader offering, we've also created a BrowserStack's proprietary rule engine, which is exclusive to native mobile apps to help you find issues automatically. So let me open a device. I'm launching a session on Galaxy S22, which is connecting to a real device cloud. So essentially what we have tried to do over here is this will reduce the cumbersome process of having to test for all accessibility issues using just the screen reader. The app workflow scanner, as we call it, automatically detects accessibility issues on your native mobile apps to make accessibility testing easier for you. So you do have an option to upload a sample IP or APK file that you might have created, or you can also download and install a native mobile app from the App Store or the Play Store as well. So for the purpose of the demo, I had already uploaded an APK file, so I'll just use that one. So while this application is getting installed, I'd also like to call out that you can do local testing as well on using the app workflow scanner, and you can change the location as well and test accordingly. And we are also going to introduce a bunch of other features that you can explore over here. So what I'll do is I'll just maybe go to the viewport that I would like to scan for accessibility over here. So let's just say we want to scan the top reads. So I'll go ahead and start scanning this page. Great. So you can see that there are some issues that have been reported by our app workflow scanner. Once you hover over them, it also shows you where exactly that issue is occurring on your viewport. You can also go ahead and view details of that particular issue, which gives you all the details around the essential elements that were affected and what exactly is the issue. You also have information on how to fix. You also have details on what that issue exactly is, or you can also learn more about that issue. You can also see all the WCAG success criteria that are getting violated because of that. And if you click on view details, you'll also get a detailed info on the element being affected, the class name, the IDs, and so on. What I'll do is I'll stop this testing. That prompts me to save this report. So I'll just save a report. So essentially what this does is it closes the current session, saves this report, and it will take me back to our dashboard. And it will show me a similar view of what we were seeing within the app workflow scanner session as well. You'll have all the functionalities that were present within the app workflow scanner session. So I would like to reiterate over here that the rule engine used by the app workflow scanner to find violations is proprietary to BrowserStack for native mobile apps. And we are continuously striving to improve on this rule engine so as to accommodate for more violations seamlessly. And along with this, we are also exploring an automation feature to help detect issues in an automated fashion. So yeah, that brings me to the end of the demo. I'll hand it back to you, Danny.
Thank you so much, Shambhavi, for the detailed walkthrough. And yeah, if you're interested to explore the accessibility product suite further, there's a poll on the screen. And yeah, if you could respond to that poll, that'd be great. Okay, all right. And now that brings us to the Q&A session. All right, let's see what questions are there. I'll stop sharing my screen. There's just one question that came in. Okay, I'll just read it out here. When do companies need to become compliant after new WCAG versions are released? Eva, you want to take this?
Sure. I would say that it definitely depends on where you are located, where the company is located. There's a lot of granularity to whether this is in the United States, in Canada, in the EU, other countries. I can speak for the United States that public sector bodies and commercial facilities do need to offer equal access to web pages. They have to conform to at least 2.0. And private entities that really receive federal funding must maintain digital accessibility. So think public university websites or DMV websites. But in general, as soon as one new version comes out, consider the previous one best practices and start the accessibility journey there. So it definitely is, it depends, but I would say that is the best approach.
Got it. Okay, we have another question for you, Eva, from Trey. I know very little about accessibility in the browser since I'm primarily a backend engineer at a B2B company. What are some ways that a backend engineer can help improve the accessibility of a full stack web application? Or is improving the accessibility of an application purely a concern for the presentation layer / browser / UI?
I would say that the answer to that second one is it is really important for all the reasons that were listed in the business case. But I think one of the things you can do as a stakeholder in a company is look at free educational material online. There's quite a bit. DQ has that. LinkedIn Learning has courses. Udemy has courses. YouTube has a plethora of information. And you can become the person that evangelizes accessibility at your organization. There is not one person specifically who does this for their organization. You can be the person that does that. I'm at the very end of the software development lifecycle as a test engineer, and I felt it was really important. And so I'm working with the accessibility champions group at my company, which is primarily product and design people, but anyone can do it. I definitely highly encourage you to look more into it. We can also share some resources.
Awesome, thank you. And I think the next question, Shambhavi, you can probably take this. Does it come with App Live or need to purchase separately? I think this is for app accessibility.
No. So basically, the pricing models for app accessibility and app live would be different. And I guess we can ask our sales team to reach out to you to take the conversation forward from here.
Got it. Okay. Let's see if we have any other questions. All right. Are there plans to integrate with project management tools such as Monday.com, where issues start can be created from the scans? Do you also want to take this, Shambhavi?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, there's a question from Miranda. Are there plans to integrate with project management tools such as Monday.com, where issues or tasks can be created from the scans?
Sure. So we are looking at integrating some of the project management tools. The first one the one that is on our roadmap currently is Jira. But we would be looking at other integrations down the line as well. So I guess we can keep you all posted once we have those integrations in place.
All right. Okay, yeah, I think that is it. The rest of the questions are being answered by our team. All right, I will share my screen again. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and for all the engaging questions. And a special thanks to our wonderful speakers, Eva and Shambhavi. You guys were amazing. Thank you all for the insights. And Shambhavi, thank you so much for the detailed product walkthrough. And yeah, again, I couldn't iterate this enough. We truly appreciate your participation and for taking out time from your busy schedule to attend this webinar. So yeah, thank you so much. Have a great day or night, wherever in the world. And I hope to see you all again soon. Bye-bye.